Also in the programme, best-selling author of Waiting to Exhale, Terry McMillan, and The Battle of the Sexes.
She's the only person I know who speaks about men how they really are. Yeah. Straightforward, liars, cheap.
We talk to every pig's favourite author, Dick King-Smith.
I do know a bit about animals because I was born in the country and farmed for 20 years. I'm desperately careful not saying silly things about them that are not true.
I want my mom.
And an update on our quest to find the Book of the Year.
I dedicate a memorial to Sir John Betjeman.
But first, in the week when Betjeman finally gets his spot in Poets' Corner, we go in search of the man beneath the public image.
Miss J. Hunter Dunn, Miss J. Hunter Dunn, furnished and burnished by Aldershot's son. What strenuous singles we played after tea. We in the tournament, you against me.
The comic, bashful suitor of Joan Hunter Dunn. Sir John Betjeman is forever fixed in our minds as a sort of cuddly, satirical bard of the London suburbs. But in fact, he was a much more complex and troubled person. And the key to some of that complexity can be found here in Cornwall.
I think the most important thing is that Cornwall to Betjeman was not just his holiday place, it was in a curious sense home.
I think my dad found the most extraordinary freedom coming here. He was a London child, basically, and this was just the most incredible paradise to come to for the whole summer.
Betjeman was only 4 in 1910 when his family first came to Damer Bay, overlooking Padstow, and his father built them this holiday home. But it offered little sanctuary to this reclusive child. He felt himself to be a misfit, an outsider, at odds with his classmates, with his parents' expectations, and even with his own nationality. He came from a family of Dutch furniture makers who spelt their names with 2 N's, a spelling John would later alter for fear of being thought German.
And of course it was no asset to have a name like that when the First World War broke out, when Betjeman was 8. And the Betjemans could claim till they were blue in the face that it was a Dutch name, but that didn't stop the children at Betjeman's school dancing round him and calling out, "Betjeman's a German spy."
Betjeman's a German spy, shoot him down and let him die. Betjeman's a German spy, a German spy, a German spy.
More than this, John was running from his father's pressures to learn the family trade.
There was this terrible tension between father and son, a growing tension as Betjeman got older, that he was not going to go into that family firm. And so it was very nice for Betjeman to escape down to Cornwall. And even when his father was down in Cornwall, Betjeman would go on bicycle rides to escape him in the house, because if he stayed around the house, his father would say things like, "You're yellow as a guinea, boy."
I'm free, I'm free. The open air was warm and heavy with the scent of flowering mint. Those were the years I used to ride for miles to far-off churches. But Betjeman knew these idyllic childhood summers must pass.
You know, he was going to have to grow up. He was going to have to move back out of this very safe holiday environment. I think he refers somewhere to the awful prospect of going back to London, having to leave on the train Cornwall and the security of Cornwall. I mean, London was the enemy.
His dread of London intensified with middle age, when first the Blitz and then post-war developers destroyed the buildings he loved, like the Metropolitan Theatre.
And look, I mean, it almost makes you like Clarning, doesn't it, for the lack of it there is here. Look, they put a car park on the site. They needn't have taken it down at all.
The destruction of lots of bits of London and England during the 50s and 60s was enormous compared to even what's going on now. And it did upset him. I mean, really upset him in the pit of his stomach. Cornwall was a tonic for him because it was permanent and the sea was the same, and the cliffs were the same, and the rock pools were the same. Coming to Cornwall was healing.
Numerous television appearances and best-selling poetry in the 50s and 60s brought with them stinging attacks from critics, who called him twee and old-fashioned. In 1972, it came to a head with his controversial appointment as Poet Laureate.
Your appointment has been stigmatised in The Guardian as...
Oh, yes, the Manchester Guardian.
The Manchester, as was, and I quote, as arbitrary and irrelevant. Do you, Sir John, feel yourself to be arbitrary and irrelevant?
Yes, thank goodness.
Good.
Yes.
In truth, Betjeman was deeply hurt. And back in Cornwall, brooding, addicted to Valium, he composed some of his darkest poems.
Only the shore and cliffs are clear, gigantic slithering shelves of slate, in waiting awfulness appear like journalism, full of hate.
These are the journalists, which is his word for critics, who disregarded his poetry, thought he wasn't a real poet. And his reply to them was to internalise all this, to go back to Cornwall and gaze upon these great slabs of slate and use them as a metaphor for his critics. One moment, I think he gazes down from the cliffs of Padstow and asks himself, do I dare to smash my head upon a slate?
And I, on my volcano edge, exposed to ridicule and hate, still do not dare to leap the ledge and smash to pieces on the slate.
By the 1970s, the beauty of Cornwall itself was being destroyed by tourism, much to Betjeman's distress. Yet it was he who had written the Shell Guide to Cornwall in 1932. For 30 years, Sir John Betjeman was happy to make money from tourist guides, but in the end, he becomes the holidaymaker's greatest adversary. In his final Cornish poem, Delectable Duchy, he looks down on the caravans, or carras, as he dubbed them, and cries out for apocalyptic destruction.
One day a tidal wave will break before the breakfasters awake, and sweep the carras out to sea, the oil, the tar, and you and me.
And as Betjeman confessed in his final television interview, he felt his own status as a poet would be washed away by death.
I like writing poetry, but I'm not certain that it's any good. I only hope to heaven it is. That time will tell.
By the 1980s, Betjeman was confined to a wheelchair with Parkinson's disease.
As he got older and iller, he came more and more down here and felt safer down here than anywhere. And I know he wanted to die here. He would have hated dying in hospital. And I'm pretty certain he just decided to die here and give up the fight here in the end, because there was an ambulance ordered for him to go back to London. And he died the morning it was due to arrive, and that was wonderful.
Sir John Betjeman was buried up here at St Enodoc Church on May 19th, 1984. So while in London this week the great and the good turn out to honour the public Betjeman, his body appropriately rests in Cornwall, his true and private home.
My name is Charlotte Liner. I'm 10 years old. I'm reading Dolphin Boy Blue by Felice Arena. The story's about a little boy drowning in the sea and a dolphin rescuing it. And ever since that, the dolphin and the boy talk mind to mind, and the dolphin helped the boy to swim, and he just got faster and faster. I wanted the book so much that I went on the end of a waiting list at the local library, and I was so pleased when I got it. It was worth the wait. I learned that dolphins are the only mammals that cry tears, and that dolphins are really clever. I like reading this book so much I couldn't put it down, but I also like swimming, which is a problem because my book wasn't waterproof.
Terry McMillan has been described as the Black Jilly Cooper, and her novels about successful black women and their deadbeat men have been a huge success on both sides of the Atlantic. But how realistic are they? Well, we went to Brixton to find out.
Terry McMillan, that's who I am. I'm a writer, but first I'm a woman, black. I'm a mom. A woman of the 90s, I'll put it that way. A strong black African-American woman of the 90s. How's that? My typical reader, black women between the ages of about 23 on up. Their lifestyles, their problems, the issues that a lot of them face today haven't really been reflected in the work that's been published.
Stella, you ought to be ashamed of yourself for getting all shook up over some young boy. I mean, really, get a grip, girl. But I realized something very profound. I haven't been this aroused on the spot in about 3,000 years. It feels like a miracle because it means I'm still alive inside.
What do you like the books then, Tash? She's realistic and it relates to my life in some sort of ways. She's the only person I know who speaks about men how they really are. Yeah. Straightforward, liars, cheats. Tell it how it is. Really?
The girl is down, you hear me? She's street. She's a girlfriend, ain't she?
She's a girlfriend.
Yeah.
She's our girlfriend.
She's funky, funky.
How Stella Got Her Groove Back? Basically, it's just about a woman who's 42 years old from California who goes to Jamaica to chill out, basically. She has lost her best girlfriend. She's a little burnt out on her job. And she just goes down there to sort of to regroup. And as a result, she ends up meeting a man like half her age. And basically, she thinks she's having what she thinks what it is just a quick little fling, and she goes on home and realizes that it's more to it than that.
You know, most women would give up on a relationship with a younger man. And in this book, you know, there is a lot of hope and there's a lot of future. She goes for it, really. Right. And I think that's the message she's probably giving to us sisters, you know, that we should go for our dreams, you know.
Hey, when I'm about her age, and if I'm still single, why not? Go to Jamaica, search for a young man.
The book is autobiographical, only to the extent that, yes, I went to Jamaica, I met a younger man, he moved back to the States, it's been a year now, and I love him dearly, and I'm probably going to marry him. Just because, for the same reason he's there, you know, why not?
But I'd just like to know, I'd just like to hear a lot more men say that they've read her books.
Yeah.
I think, and that her books, what she's written, and all that's being said, which is basically what the black woman's looking for, it would all come to light then. But the men would have read it. Yeah. It's all right for us to read it, but we know what we're feeling, we can relate to it. But I want that, you know, it'd be nice to know that the men are reading it as well.
All I can say is this, I'm tired of women. They're all the same, that's for damn sure. Want all your time and energy. Want the world to revolve around them. And once you give them some good loving, they go crazy. Start hearing wedding bells. Start thinking about babies. And the prettier they are, the more they want.
How many men were there in Waiting to Exhale? There was like loads and they were all dogs, literally. I don't think there was one man in that book who did any good. They always just like life, innit? They always portray that they're so nice, they're loving, they're caring, and then to come to the end of it, what do? Leave you.
But she's always male bashing. It's like we try and make out the black men all dogs. We're not. Yeah. So apart from that, it was entertaining, and yeah, when you got it, you don't want to put it down and stuff. But it's not like what I'd say was representative of the black community.
It's coming off more fact than fiction, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, not every man is like that. Basically, it was just a book for women them to rally around together and to laugh at man, you understand me?
I'm so sick of this, you just don't know. I'm so sick of being accused of male bashing. I wish they would get over it. You know, I mean, anytime you criticize men, they consider it bashing. You know, I mean, they can call us bitches in large numbers. You know, we've been hearing that for years, but is that bashing? No.
I think she portrays a positive image, although in Waiting to Exhale, some of them were negative images of men, but I think a positive role model is a good thing for young women nowadays. And I got two sisters that are growing up, and it's the type of thing I would like them to aspire to, you know, not take no crap from nobody and be successful.
So have you got your groove back, too?
Yeah, and I'm trying to keep it, too. I got my groove back, and I'm trying to keep it.
Get down, Funky Brown. All right. I gotta get a nice young man for this.
While you're at it, find me one, please.
And if you'd like to find out more about John Betjeman's Cornwall, or any of the relevant poems, or need any info on the books or authors featured in this programme, then send for our fact sheet. To get your copy, call this number, 0891 555 321. The call won't cost any more than 3 first-class stamps, or you can write to us at this address. And don't forget to leave your votes for the Book of the Year. We'll be picking 3 voters at random who'll be receiving a late Christmas present of the top 10 books. Front runners at the moment are Snow Falling on Cedars by David Gutterson, Therapy by David Lodge, and Longitude by Dava Sobel, which not only features in next week's programme, but is Patrick Moore's Book of the Year.
I'll go for this book about longitude. After all, Britain's always been a seafaring nation, and the Royal Greenwich Observatory was established to help British seamen find their way around. It all depended upon finding one's longitude, which would be a really great problem. It's a fascinating story, well told here, and also a British story. After all, it was Harrison who invented the chronometer that finally solved it. So I'll go for longitude.
Sweet, aren't they? Children's author Dick King-Smith became an international name when his book The Sheep Pig was turned into a movie. That's right, made. Well, as his thousands of fans will tell you, however, there's a lot more to Dick King-Smith than talking pigs.
Hello, sir. Excuse me, but it's nearly dawn, and I'm sorry to disturb you, but it's nearly dawn, and I wondered if you'd mind crowing just a few minutes early this morning. Get out of here. But, well, see, I just... Get lost. Oh, okay. Oh. Whoa.
After farming for many years, Dick King-Smith only began writing in his 50s, but has still managed to produce nearly 100 books. The reason he appeals is that he's not afraid to face difficult issues and always shows the darker side of life on a farm.
The pigman held the dag, its curious forefeet sticking out above his curled fingers. He shifted his grasp and took a good grip on his club with the other hand.
I think it's good that he does show the way that farms do kill the runts, or the dags as they call it in the book. And I like it the way that he never makes it all wonderful and brilliant and nothing ever bad happens.
To think that everything in the farmyard is lovely and there's never going to be anything like death arriving is a very blind sort of view, and the children are great realists anyway. I don't believe they're blinded to those sort of facts at all. All I'm doing really is underlining the fact that this is how life operates, and death.
But in his new book, Dick King-Smith has taken this realism much further. Godhanger is aimed at older children, but is still shocking in its savage indictment of man's inhumanity to the animal kingdom.
There's a valley not far from where I live, in the bottom of which is a wood, and then suddenly you come upon a stand or a grove of exotic trees, totally different from ordinary English hardwood trees. And I thought that I would put that grove of trees into Godhanger Wood itself as somewhere different, somewhere strange, somewhere magical.
I think he describes it as a glorious place to be for the animals, but it seems to deteriorate as the gamekeeper enters. It seems to have kind of a murky feel about it. He stands out in the language to be really dark personality, by himself, doesn't care about anything.
At that precise moment, the evening's peace was shattered by the blast of a gunshot, followed by a thin, agonized screaming that ceased as suddenly as it had arisen.
The way that he describes a rabbit being slaughtered is more as an animal would see it, like it's like a companion being slaughtered in front of them. It's really clever how he does that. And I think it's very true to life, and I think he's trying to bring it forward and tell people what it's really like. It's just not, I've killed it. There's more to it than that.
Man is shown to be the baddie in this book, because he just kills for trophies, not for food. Because food is understandable, but just killing for trophies is portrayed in this book as a really bad thing.
It is a very blood-stained book, and particularly where you have a whole society of predators whose lives depend on their killing and eating other creatures.
Once you've read some of his books, you really get an understanding of how animals feel, their intelligence, their fears of life, and it's certainly been a turning point for me reading this book.
Many readers have become vegetarian. They've been so influenced by his accounts of life on the farm.
I think in some books it's sad because they're locked up in just little rooms just to be fattened up, to eat, to be killed. I read to my little brother Shane, and sometimes if I tell him that the animals have been taken to a slaughterhouse, he asks what happens to them. And I say, well, we eat them, and it's up to him if he wants to decide whether to eat meat.
Some of his readers certainly assume that Dick King-Smith would be a vegetarian.
I'm not a vegetarian because I like eating meat. I'm worried sometimes about how that meat gets onto my table. I think there's still a certain inherent cruelty in the business of slaughter. And I think that animals sometimes still are very stressed on their way to death, which is a sad thing. So all I can really hope, in a rather woolly way, is that each individual animal, when it is ready to be killed, is killed as quickly and mercifully and with as little stress as possible. It doesn't always happen, but that wouldn't necessarily make me a vegetarian, because I love pigs, but I like sausages.
My name's Rex Sternouth. I'm a farmer and a Cornishman. I also run a riding stable. I've lived here at this farm all my life. At the moment I'm reading a James Herriot called Vets Might Fly. I've had the book some time, but some of it got lost in the bookcase and I've just discovered it.